Hello everyone, this is Revati for Scrappiness. Wishing all you beautiful people out there a very happy new year from me and my team. I hope you guys had an amazing holiday season and are ready for a fresh crafty start here in 2023. Today I will be sharing some tips and tricks to mass produce birthday cards which would be perfect for any time of the year. I'll be using some beautiful stencils. We have a bunch of die cutting, stamping, coloring, and well, a rainbow of birthday cards. For my video today, I will be mass producing cards for all you animal lovers out there, but well, you could use any stencil that you have in your stash to recreate this design that I'll be showing you here today. All of the supplies that I'm using in this video are by Scrappiness and everything is linked down in the description box below. Well, before we get started, I would really appreciate if you could take a minute to subscribe to the Scrappiness channel and hit the bell icon to get notified every time we post a new video. Let's get started. Here I have stencils which I will be using to create my card fronts. I have the dog bone stencil and the Pawprint stencil, both of which are 6 by 6 really high quality stencils by Scrappiness. For my cat lovers out there, I have the ball of yarn stencil and the fishbone stencil. Well, I'll be using these four stencils to create 8 cards. So I will have 2 cards of each design. I wanted to start my 2023 with a lot of color. So I will be creating a rainbow of birthday cards. I have some beautiful colored cardstock here arranged in the rainbow order. We have red, orange, yellow, greens, blues and purples. These will be perfect for my colored card base. I will be creating 8 top folding cards using these colored cardstock, and for my card front I will have white panel with beautiful colored stenciling all over it. For our first 2 cards, which would be the red and the orange color, I will be using this beautiful 6 by 6 Pawprint stencil. I have a cardstock here which is cut to 4 by 5 1 quarter, which is slightly smaller than a regular A2 size card base. The first note card that I have here is red color. So I decided to use shades of red ink. You could use a single shade or shade it down, create an ombre effect. The choices are many. The best part about these stencils are that they are not symmetric and you could lay them in any orientation. Well, to hold my cardstock onto the stencil, I like to apply some painter's tape on the edges of the cardstock. The painter's tape does not rip my cardstock, but it does hold it in place while I'm ink blending. For my first card here, I will be ink blending 3 different shades of reds. Well, here I am using distress inks, but you could use any shades or dye inks, pigment ink, anything of your choice. Well, you could also use up your ink sprays. This would be a perfect way to utilize your ink sprays. Another fun way to use up your stencils and add a lot of texture on your card base is by using your gels and pastes and just applying it over the stenciled image. To protect my fingers from all that ink, I like to hold a tiny piece of painter's tape on my fingers. That way my fingers are clean and I don't blend all of that red ink on the next color. Before moving on to the next color, I will make sure that the stencil is completely wiped. You could wash it with warm water or like I did here, use a baby wipe. I will be creating top folding note cards for all of my cards today. For that, I have 4.5 by 11-inch cardstock scored at 5.5 inch. Well, since we are mass producing, we will stick all of the panels later. First, we will ink blend all of the card fronts. Just like we did on card number 1 where I ink blended all of the red inks, for my second card I will be using different shades of orange. I like to give it a slight ombre effect, so here I went with 3 shades starting with the lightest to the darkest. Since we will be mass producing on white cardstock, I wanted to make sure that My work surface is completely clean and my fingers have no ink over them, so that I didn't want to mix up the inks between each color. So after I finish coloring and ink blending each panel, I make sure that I wipe my work surface and the stencil thoroughly. Here's a look at the first two card panels. I have red and orange in the Pawprints stencil. For the third and the fourth card, I will be using the dog bone stencil and coloring it using yellow and shades of green. Like I mentioned earlier, you could use any kind of stencils that you have in your stash. Use up your dye inks, pigment inks, sprays, or gels. There are so many different ways to recreate this design. Once we are done with the puppy cards, let's make some cards for our cute little cats. For card number 5 and 6, I have the fishbone stencil for which I will be using green and blue shades of ink. And for the last two cards, which would be in light blue and purple, I will be using the ball of yarn stencil. Well, I'm yet to stick these panels on the card base, but when I'm mass producing with a bunch of different colors, I like to make sure that I have all the panels coordinated well with my card base. So I like to keep them organized one over the other while I finish the next colored panel. Unlike the paw print and the dog bone stencil, the fishbone stencil is quite delicate at those bones, so be very careful and gentle when you're trying to take off the color. The best way to clean up your delicate and intrinsic stencils are just by washing them under some warm tap water. That way, you don't mess up with the stencil or break the stencil in any way. Here's a look at all of our colored panels. I love these bold and beautiful designs. The color is really vibrant and matches perfectly with those card panels. Again, our goal here today is to mass produce a bunch of birthday cards. So if you do not have a bunch of these colors, no worries, you could just recreate these cards using different kind of stencils in the same color. Now, when I'm mass producing cards, I like to do each step at a time. So I began first by cutting these top folding A2 size card bases. Then we colored and stenciled these beautiful designs over card panels. Now we have to apply some adhesive to stick these panels onto the card base. For that, I will be using some double-sided tape. I don't want a lot of dimension on my card, but you could very well use some foam tape to adhere your cards onto the panel. Well, this is also the time where you could turn these into edge-to-edge shaker cards and stick your pockets onto the card panel. I stuck all of my panels onto these card bases. Now all we have to do is add a sentiment strip or a die cut sentiment and we could call this card done. For our cards today, I will be using this happy birthday die, word die which comes with a shadow die. I did cut the happy birthday sentiment using some black cardstock and the shadow using white cardstock. Nothing fancy here. I have a 100-pound white cardstock and a 100-pound black cardstock. You could also cut out the shadow using the same color as the base of the card. But we will be doing something different here. Before that, I stuck the happy birthday onto the shadow die and don't forget to add the dot on the eye. Well, I must confess that that is something I usually miss out on. We can now adhere this happy birthday die onto the card front. Well, since we are mass producing and we do each step at a time, I have a bunch of these happy birthday die cards ready to go. Since I was planning on creating 8 cards, I cut the happy birthday sentiment 8 times, the shadow using white cardstock and the happy birthday using black cardstock. I use my Gemini Junior die cutting machine to do all of these die cuts. Well, for the shadow die cut, I could have used the same red cardstock as the base of my card, but instead I colored the shadow using the same red color that I used to stencil the pawprints on my card front. Since the happy birthday word was cut out of black cardstock, this red won't affect it. And I do get a light but subtle color on my happy birthday sentiment. Here's a look at all of the happy birthday sentiments that I colored using the same shades of colors that I used for stenciling. I also applied some foam tape to adhere this sentiment strip on my card panel. I wanted a little dimension here. Well, I did go ahead and adhere all of these die cut happy birthday sentiments on the colored panels. Well, at this point, you could call these cards done, but what's a card for an animal lover without a cute little dog or a cat on the card front? So, off camera, I did go ahead and cut out some images from this Pawsome dog and Pawsome cats stamp set, again by Cat Scrappiness. Well, this is what I like to do in my free time. I like to color a bunch of the stamped images and die cut them and keep them ready for my projects. I stamped these images using the Versafine Onyx Black ink and poured some clear embossing powder over them. The clear embossing powder definitely gives a slight shine to the images. To color my images, I used my alcohol markers. Now all we have to do is stick these images onto the card fronts. I stuck all of these images using some liquid glue right above the happy birthday die cut sentiment. Here's a look at the finished cards. I love how beautiful these cards are. I love the gorgeous vibrant colors, the pattern, the texture on the card. The little kittens and the dogs are really so adorable. Well, I love how these turned out, and I had so much fun creating these cards. This is a very easy technique to mass produce a bunch of different cards using a bunch of different products, inks, and a lots more. I had so much fun creating these and also plan on creating some thank you cards using the same concept. I hope you had fun watching the video and got inspired. I will leave a link down in the description box below for all the supplies that I used in today's video. I would love for you to become a subscriber to our channel, and if you do subscribe or are already a subscriber, please make sure to hit the bell icon so that you don't miss the next time we post. Hit the like button and let us know in the comments down below if you have any ideas or suggestions. Also, if you'd like to share your creations, please tag us on our Instagram at @Scrappiness. There's a link to that in the description box below. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.